I was not the rookie of the year. I was the opposite of rookie of the year. My initial response to this massive burnout was, it's not worth it. This isn't what I signed up for. I'm not willing to sacrifice my sanity for this, or I can convince myself I'm better off shrinking. And I tried that. And you know what happened? The pipeline dried up and I found myself back in credit card debt within a year. At the end of the day, when we try to shrink, we kind of go against human nature. I think that as human beings, I know we are here to expand.
So let's say she's listening and she's like, Erin, I'm with you. I'm cutting everything. Like, school's almost out. I'm not going back. What would you say is the best way for her to get her own client base built up?
One of the things that I am passionate about is that there's not a one-size-fits-all plan. There's a fundamental framework.
What should they do to start working themselves out onto the next level?
So the first thing I'll say is that
I'm loving this podcast, Erin. You are literally like such a breath of fresh air.
And because all I wanted was freedom and flexibility, and I didn't have it when my credit card was being declined, and I didn't have it when I was tethered to my phone 24/7.
You mentioned earlier, celebrate your wins. She finishes her lead gen, continues, with their calendar. How would you advise real estate agents to celebrate?
Erin Bradley is in the house today. Erin, we are so excited to have you here today. And before we hit record on this podcast, we were already talking about some good stuff. So to catch everyone up, Erin has had a history with her business, and at one point it fell on her face. This was her own words. And so she learned how to consistently double her business every single year in a non-salesy way, which Ali and I are like, dude, tell us more. We want to know all about it. So Erin, how do we double our business every year?
Okay, so I should back up a minute just so you can understand that I was not the rookie of the year. I was the opposite of rookie of the year. I went 100% commission on the mortgage side of the business in 2007, thinking that I wanted freedom and flexibility and self-employment. And I was like, oh, I can do this. I see these successful people like wearing jeans and t-shirt to the office every day and then going to yoga in the middle of the day. And then they put on a suit and go to closing and come home with a big check. I'm like, this is going to be awesome. And so I take the leap of faith and I do so with no game plan, no financial safety net, no systems, no confidence. If I'm honest, I was absolutely terrified of being seen as salesy, and I promptly fell flat on my face. So within a year, it's the summer of 2008, and I get a referral for a client, and I'm maxed out on like tens of thousands of dollars of credit card debt. And I didn't have enough money for gas. So I had to ride my bike 5 miles across town in the summer to meet the client and figure out like, what can I wear to look professional and ride a bike and not be sweaty when the client gets there. So I got there early to let the sweat dry off. And unfortunately, the client got there early as well. And he introduced himself to me at the counter as my credit card was being declined for a $2 cup of coffee. And I just remember thinking like, this is it. I am mortified. And the worst part was I actually thought that was the card that would work. So I didn't want to try another one and have that be declined because then the guy would know. And I was like, oh, that's so weird. I had to just lie. I'm like, that's my debit card. I'm just gonna have to call the bank. And he bought my coffee and I'm like mortified. So I remember calling my dad for advice. I'm just like, how did you do this? Because all the advice I'm being given for sales is just so antiquated and so dreadful. I just wasn't really doing it clearly because it was not working. And he's like, look, if you think you're going to be good at this, just do whatever it takes. And I thought to myself, I do think I could be good at this. So I opened another credit card, hired a coach, and just said to the coach, like, tell me what to do and I'll do it. And so for the next couple of years, I followed the game plan that most of us are given, like make this many calls, write this many notes, see this many people, do the things. But I never really felt aligned with it. I mean, I was desperate, so I did it, and I got I started closing deals and making money. It was fine, but it wasn't very enjoyable. And it wasn't until 4 years in that I read The Go-Giver. Have you ladies read that? Yeah. So I read The Go-Giver, and it was this huge paradigm shift because I realized that everything that felt inauthentic and out of alignment for me the previous 4 years was being a go-getter, right? Like, make the calls, write the notes, do the things to get the leads, to get the deals, to get the money, to solve my problem. So everything's activating from fear. Like, I'm looking at my bank account, my pipeline, I'm freaking out, I'm feeling insecure, I'm wrestling with uncertainty constantly. And I've been told just take this action and that'll solve my problem. And so everything is self-serving, coming from a place of like filling my void. And I think that's what makes it feel so dreadful a lot of the time and the reason we procrastinate. So I developed a strategy that was founded on the go-giver principles of being of value to people even when they don't need your services. And it ultimately resulted in my business more than doubling from averaging like, I don't know, 30 closings a year for the previous couple years to doing nearly 80 in 2012. And I fully fell apart, like made more money than I ever anticipated and was drowning in it. And I remember asking advice of some of the men and women in my company that were ahead of me in the game. Like if I had closed 20 million in volume, they were closing 30 million. And they all admitted that they just work 24/7. And so I remember thinking like, again, maybe I'm not cut out for this because all I wanted was freedom and flexibility. And I didn't have it when my credit card was being declined. And I didn't have it when I was tethered to my phone 24/7. So that's where like the concept of pursuing freedom was born. I was like, where is the freedom and flexibility? Because on both ends of the spectrum, I'm stressed to the max. So anyway, without getting too far ahead of myself, I ended up learning how to scale the business. And that's how we continue to double time and again, was by removing myself as the bottleneck. And that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, what ended up developing into a workshop and then a book was Pursuing Freedom, how to be yourself, increase your referrals, and have more fun growing your business. Because if we're going to take the stressful route of entrepreneurship, then it better be fun too. Like it better be to fuel an epic life and give us permission to be present with our loved ones and do all the epic life adventures that we crave and deserve. And so it's just been a journey of that ever since, just trying to teach more people how to be unapologetically authentic, design a business around you, your interests, your personality, your energy, and be willing to let that evolve over time as your interests change and evolve, and be the driver, be the designer of the future of your business as your life expands and changes over the years.
I really like the way that you said that, where people will have too much stress when they don't have enough money coming in. But then they're also going to have a lot of stress when they have too much, going on. They have too many clients. So like a lot of people resort back to that happy middle where it's like they have more in them, but they don't want to stress themselves out. I'm talking about myself right now. So we're so
Classic Ali. She's
of
always like,
course. I mean,
hypothetically, okay, it's me. I'm talking about me.
hypothetically, if there was a real estate agent that lived in Tucson, Arizona, yeah. So how would you do you categorize this in like different levels, or because you said that you were always the bottleneck at each level? My words, not yours. So let's start with like like a beginner level agent. What is the like tactical step of what they should do? You hired a coach. What should they do to start working themselves out onto the next level to continue scaling?
Yeah, so there's a couple of questions I feel like embedded there. So the first thing I'll say is that what you just alluded to, this attempt to try to stay settling for less than our full potential, I think that's one of the epidemics in our industry. Because when I first experienced this massive burnout, I was pregnant with my second child, and I remember joking, I'm looking forward to maternity leave, like some kind of like sick vacation from work. And I hadn't taken a maternity leave with my first one. I just worked right through. And I see that happen all the time in our industry. And I think it's ridiculous now looking back. Like, could I have taken 2 months off in 2010? And would it really have derailed the trajectory of my career because I decided to take time to be with my kids? Like, when I take a 2-week vacation to Hawaii or something, like, does it put me out of business? No. So I think that fear drives a lot of our decisions to talk ourselves into settling for less, or talk ourselves out of taking a leap of faith that feels terrifying. And my initial response to this massive burnout was, it's not worth it. This isn't what I signed up for. I'm not willing to sacrifice my sanity for this. I wanted to make good money. We all start out in the beginning. It's like when business takes off, the initial feeling at first is this relief. And I actually feel guilty sometimes talking about this in the market we're in 2025, because a lot of people are probably listening thinking, that sounds like a great problem to have. I wish I had that problem. It's like, well, maybe, but my initial response is what you talked about, Ali, is that I thought, well, I can either survive success like my colleagues are doing, which doesn't look attractive. It's actually derailing my desire to aspire for more, or I can convince myself I'm better off shrinking. And I tried that. And you know what happened? The pipeline dried up and I found myself back in credit card debt within a year. And I remember just feeling so fed up, like enough is enough. There's got to be a better way. I almost had quit the business. At the end of the day, when we try to shrink, we kind of go against human nature. I think that as human beings, I know we are here to expand. We are at our best, enjoying life the most when we're excited about where we're headed, when we're growing, when we're learning, being challenged and expanding. That is the human experience. And we know this because every time we've ever achieved a goal, how long are we in celebration before a new desire arises? And there's nothing wrong with that. If we can embrace that as the beauty of the journey of being a human in a human experience, then like, let's just lighten up a little bit and allow expansion, right? But we also have to accept that as we're expanding to these new desires, every single time we're on the leading edge of some ridiculous pipe dream, right? Like, I'm going to double my business. I'm going to take a couple months off and travel the world. I'm going to we took our kids on a 6-month RV road trip and homeschooled them during COVID. We moved to a ski town and then like halfway through my career. And I thought that would put me out of business. I mean, lots of things that seemed maybe even irresponsible that we did. And when you're there on that leading edge, it's scary. You're about to step into unfamiliar territory. And so to bring it full circle, I was the bottleneck every time I was on the leading edge, and I was allowing fear to inform my decision and to convince me to play small. And I think that when we try to play small, we self-sabotage. So the biggest thing to do is just get intimate with what's going on up there in our heads. So like, take a pen and paper and fill it in. It would be amazing to what? In my dream world, I'm what? Like, I wish I could fill in the blanks, right? And then the very first word that comes up is but. So whatever follows but, fill it in. I wish I could move to that ski town, but I can't because my business is in Denver and I would put myself out of bit, like, fill in the blanks and then evaluate if it's even true. Because usually that's just our fear. And if we can get intimate with that, we can challenge it. And sometimes we can make decisions in spite of it. And I think we develop a muscle to being a witness to our fear and how it's kept us playing small in the past and how it's not often untrue, and do the thing anyway. And usually the worst case scenario would mean I'd end up back where I was before I took this chance, right? And the worst case scenario is highly unlikely. Usually our biggest risk becomes our smartest decision, and we don't know that until we do it. So I think, again, it's like kind of a long-winded answer to a question that is very common in our industry, is that we've experienced burnout. If you've never experienced burnout, that might sound like a good problem to have. It's not. So what I would advise instead is, if someone's listening and they're at the beginning of their career, or maybe they're stuck in a valley right now, is to ask yourself, what would it look like to be experiencing massive success? And what would need to be in place for me to be able to enjoy that level of volume? So with the increased income is increased responsibility. So what would I need to have in place? I never expected to do that kind of volume in 2012. If I had expected it, if I had planned for it, it maybe wouldn't have completely knocked my socks off. And so again, we can just use that past experience to inform our decisions, to say, we really have no clue what we're capable of, because somewhere along the way, you've probably exceeded the expectation of your younger self. And maybe to the point of like, whoa, that was overwhelming. And I'm excited at first, but then I'm really out of alignment. It's like, okay, so knowing that I really have no clue what I'm capable of, because I've seen it in my past that I've exceeded the expectation or the truth I knew to be true about myself, then every time I'm now on the leading edge of where I want to go next, I can remember that. I can remember that we are probably only scratching the surface, but we are actually limitless. And the only thing standing in our way most often is us, and allowing fear, to defend, use our fear to defend why we're going to talk ourselves into playing small or talk ourselves out of taking that leap. So it's not easy to take leaps of faith and to follow that intuition. That's your heart speaking up, because the head is loud and the chatter is debilitating at times, right? And so the best thing to do is what people are doing right here. Like, listen to the podcast, tune in, get in the room with people, and recognize that you're not alone. You're with your fear, your worry, your uncertainty, your overwhelm, your burnout. You're not alone. And it can feel lonely, but you don't have to feel lonely. Just tune in, tap in, hang around people that remind you of your future, and you'll start to see your own life experience continue to expand.
I have a question about this is one of our listeners. If she's probably listening right now. You know who you are. I love you so much. But she called me yesterday. We talked for maybe 30 minutes. She switched markets in the past year and she has a W-2, like a full-time, like a teaching job. And right now she joined a local team within EXP in New York and has so many buyers right now that are like tire kickers. They're not really doing much. And she's trying to leave her school job this year. So she has like 2 months to try to make enough money. Money is tight. New York is expensive. The teacher salary, the whole thing. She has all of these leads who are asking for things and driving her nuts, but not taking any action. And she doesn't know what to do because she feels like she doesn't have the money to hire out the help that she feels like she needs because she has two under contract. And she has all of this going on, plus she's in school all day. And I was trying to, we talked through how, I thought that she could help, but I'm curious, like, what do you think that she should do? She's about to head out on summer break. She's got all of these leads. They're not really doing much, but they might. And she doesn't know how to get to the point where she feels confident with her income to never go back to school. Does this make sense? Am I making sense?
100%. So the first thing I like to do is I just had a conversation exactly the same this morning with a coaching client of mine who is in a W-2 making $75,000 a year. So we ran the numbers. It's on average of 1 to 2 closings per month to replace that income. So until she feels confident, what we want to do is put any commission checks she gets into the runway account. We call it the runway to buy yourself a life. So that's your freedom account. And if we do the math, and I can't do the math at the moment, but whatever that works out to be per month, like let's just call it $6,000 a month. Okay. So usually in our industry, it takes 90 days from consistent activity to results, meaning consistent activity to closings and dollars in the bank. And it's tough because most of us are so preoccupied by where we are instead of where we're going. Where we are is the byproduct of what we've been doing and where we've been, right? So if she needs a 90-day runway to be able to go all in on this and have dollars in the bank by the end of that 90 days, then in the example I'm using at $6,000 a month is her salary, I would want her to have at least $18,000 in her runway account to buy herself a life. And then that way, come June, when school lets out, she not only has enough in that account, if feasible, I mean, it's already May, but if feasible, she has enough in that account to do regular monthly transfers and or continue to be paid by the school if she's on a 12-month salary, while she goes full out for 90 days with a very specific schedule and lead generating activity. Now, the schedule piece is important to the demands of the clients. And this is also an issue in our industry, is that when we start out, because we have no clue what we're capable of, let's be honest, any one of us takes this leap of faith. It's pretty terrifying. Like, we're hopeful, right? Like I was hopeful when my dad said, "Do you think you're gonna be good at this someday?" I'm like, I think so, but I don't have any evidence to prove it right now, right? So I remember like thinking to myself, okay, well, I better just jump and bounce to every demand that comes my way. So every time a client calls, I'm going to drop everything. Every time a text comes in, I'm going to respond to that alert. And so we develop these bad habits at a time when we have no clue what we're capable of. And that's the stuff that becomes unsustainable when you have leads that you're converting and people going under contract and you're managing the contract to close and you have these demands of high level customer service because you've created a false expectation that you dropping everything to bounce for everybody else's agenda is the best way to do customer service. It's actually not. In fact, it's an illusion. Most realtors and lenders I know do not have a schedule, do not have boundaries, do not have a game plan, and they don't have themes for their days or like what I like to call buckets or containers dedicated to certain activities to ensure that we can successfully manage the customer service as well as consistently generate more leads while we're in customer service mode. And as a result of that, we think that like, if I slow down, if I put some boundaries in place, people aren't going to want to work with me anymore. And I'm like, you're already dropping the ball when you're just running on fumes, never present, you're scattered, distracted, giving from an empty well, and you're handling someone's most important financial decision. So we kind of have to take the house down to the studs to recognize that we often get started and we're so nervous and haphazard. We just start throwing stuff against the wall to see what sticks. And it's like we build a foundation on a faulty foundation. I mean, we build a house on a faulty foundation. So as soon as more deals start coming our way, something's going to start crumbling. It could be our health, our relationships, our sanity, whatever. And then fear is still the driver of this behavior that is unsustainable. So it is hard because we think, like I said, this false belief that if I do it any differently, I'm going to compromise my customer experience. And I would wager that if we don't do it differently, you're already compromising your client experience because they're not even getting the very best of you as a true professional. You're not present. You're just so like running on fumes, like this hamster wheel never ends, right? So we've got to stop. We've got to pump the brakes, take the house down to the studs, evaluate the foundation, and ask yourself, knowing what I know now, how do I want it to look and feel? And is it really the best thing that my clients get access to me all the time, even when they're kicking the tires? Like, I would probably create a plan where there's certain windows of the day that I drive those conversations to, rather than being reactive to them and allowing my energy and my attention, and in some cases, my mood and emotions to be tethered, right, or hijacked by the agendas of everyone else around me. I think business owners miss the mark a lot of the difference between being in the driver's seat or being a passenger on the agendas of everybody else. And I think we can level up. That's all. I mean, it's scary. Again, these are all things that feel uncomfortable and scary, but we've got to recognize that the way we've always done it won't work at the next level. So we've got to figure out what we have to graduate from to create space to evolve and continue to expand with ease and joy. Otherwise, there will be resistance and overwhelm and then self-sabotage.
So what would you say would be an example of how, with that same example, what should that agent say to a client that's maybe, texting her, "Hey, how about this house?" without yet being a pre-approval, or maybe they are pre-approved, but they're just still not that serious. And we get that all the time, like we get clients texting at whatever time. They can text me at whatever time. I'm not going to respond until XYZ, but what would you advise that agent to say in response in order to start driving, and to not be reactive and, like you said, like push them toward your schedule?
And creating boundaries for herself.
Well, one of the hardest things to do is don't respond in the windows that are unacceptable for you to be working. So I learned this very early on from an incredible mentor of mine who was a manager back in like around that time, like 2011, 2012, when my business started to really pop. And I just felt like I was juggling too many balls and balls were getting dropped, I asked for advice. He said, look, I tell my clients from day one, I'm about to handle the biggest financial decision of your year, possibly your lifetime. So I want you to know how you can expect me to show up for you as a true professional. These are my working hours. And the reason I want to share this with you is that I feel like it would be a disservice to you to pick up the phone or respond to your inquiries when I'm busy, fill in the blanks, like living my life. I mean, if I pick up the phone at my kid's soccer game, there's a chance I could be distracted and make a mistake, and you deserve better. So for that reason, I only handle professional inquiries when I'm at the office during these hours. If we need to make an exception to that rule, we most certainly will, like, obviously to see a house, listings, whatever. However, if you've got somebody that's just firing off at you, it's really easy to get caught up in their energy. I call it like the tornado. Like, I can see this client is spinning out and they're not very linear. They're not organized. I don't even want to say they're not respecting my boundaries because I never communicated any boundaries. They're just watching TV and a house popped up. So they're going to shoot it off to you like no big deal. And you're having a response to that. So we need to control our energetic response to other people, number one, and not get in the tornado with them. As the true professional, I want to be a witness to that behavior. And then I want to provide some guidance. So it looks like you're getting really excited about, you've sent me a couple different text messages with a couple different properties, different styles and different neighborhoods. What do you say we hop on a call and you gather up all that data and let's go through and talk about the pros and cons so we can start to streamline this process a little bit and make sure that we get you exactly what you're looking for. So let's just like clarify what your preferences are, because it feels a little bit all over the board at this time. And I want to make sure I give you the level of service you deserve. So I want to get some clarity around this, right? So like, let's schedule an appointment. And if that's feasible for her, then that would be what I would recommend is like drive them into the container of time you've earmarked for that particular type of thing, which is your reactivity.
What you're mentioning reminds me a lot of a book that I read that I can't remember. I think it was like by Patrick Bet David. Super super good as far as when you said like buckets of time. And I'm kind of like in this right now where I'm reorganizing my hours of each day, what I'm doing, just to batch more similar activities together. So for other agents that are like in this past example, working a full-time job but trying to get out of it to go full-time real estate and servicing clients. What would you, as far as like a calendar, a typical day, how would you recommend people structuring, like when you say buckets of time, lead gen, where can people slip in these activities and showing homes? What would you advise to that agent?
Well, this is kind of a loaded question, right? Because the reason
All of
people
mine
are
tend to be loaded. Sorry.
well,
Totally.
let's just be honest. The primary motivator for someone who maintains their W-2 job is they want security. Okay. They're afraid to take the leap, quit the job, and grow their wings on the way down because they want the steady paycheck. They want the safety net. And my response to that is when you keep a job, what is your expectation? Your expectation is that the boss, the business owner, the manager understands and has a plan for profitability, and they've decided to hire you. And as long as you come to work on time and do what's expected of you, you're going to get paid the promised amount in exchange, right? That's our expectation for job security. So then we look at entrepreneurship and I ask people, what about you? Because would you trust you as the business owner? Now, this is going away from your question a little bit, but this has to do with when is it time to take the leap? It is very difficult to build a successful real estate business as a part-time side hustle. Everyone I know who's experienced exponential growth and quantum leaps in their business started thinking about it like a business ahead of time, which I did not do, right? I just wanted to not have a boss, but then I fell flat on my face because I didn't have a schedule. I didn't go to work on time. I didn't do what's expected of me consistently. And as a result, my outcomes was inconsistent. But what if I did? What if as a business owner, I determined that on Mondays during these windows, I do these things, and on Tuesdays, and we theme out the days and we create those containers where we have certain times of the week that we're working on creating our future business and certain times of the week, which is the rest of it, that we've earmarked for scheduled reactivity, right? White space to allow the unexpected to fill in, which it always will, right? And that there's an off time and an on time because we need to be rested to handle this biggest financial decision of somebody's life. We shouldn't be haphazard. We should be organized and present and focused and energized and excited to be giving this customer service experience, right? And so I think this speaks to the fear. When is it time to give yourself permission to go all in real estate? So I don't know if I can give a clear answer because I didn't do that. I mean, I took the 100% commission, I took the leap of faith, and then I found other ways like bartending on Friday night or getting a part-time job at the airport so that my husband and I could fly free, which we did. I was the gate agent at Denver International Airport, like final immediate boarding call, whatever it takes to get that little extra income, but remove the W-2 job because that's kind of like the well in the bathtub right now. And you're trying to fit it in around the edges. And anytime I have had someone on my podcast who did that, like moonlighting, trying to get real estate going while in their full-time W-2, and I asked them, going back, like, would you do it differently? Would you have taken that leap sooner? And I believe almost 100% of them said a resounding yes. The only thing I would have done differently is I would have taken that leap sooner because we can create such bigger momentum with our full focus. And even I had a coach back in 2009 who asked me, like, of all the things you're doing in pursuit of this elusive freedom, which one could give you financial freedom fastest? And it was for sure my entrepreneurial journey. She said, then my suggestion is cut everything. You have this perpetual energy that you're spreading out over multiple focuses. Cut everything that's not going to expedite your path to financial freedom and give it all to the one thing. And as soon as I did that, I experienced exponential growth.
I have a question so let's say she's listening and she's like, Erin, I'm with you. I'm cutting everything. Like school's almost out. I'm not going back. 100%, no matter what, I'm not going back. Then she's looking at her schedule, like her, white space now. And I know right now in her specific situation, all of the leads she's getting are from her team leader, which I think is fine. But the issue she's running into is that these leads are coming to the team leader expecting probably to work with him and then getting shifted to her. And they're not all, they don't know her. She's now cold to them. They were expecting the team leader. Now they, whatever. So like, although she has leads, they're not the warm, wonderful, we love you, whatever. So let's just say when she's entering the summer break, what would you say is the best way for her to get her own client base built up in this new city, New York City, which she's actually from? She just moved away for years and then came back to. Yeah, just any thoughts you have on building that authentic lead generation of her own sphere, whatever you got for that.
If you're on a 50-50 split, it's time to rethink your brokerage. At eXp, the split is 80-20. And once you cap, you keep 100%. We show you how to get there faster. I'm Ali Garced, or Ali the Agent. My sponsor, Shelby Johnson, and I each close over 40 deals a year. We are full-time agents actively producing, and everyone in our upline is an icon agent. When you name us as a sponsor at eXp, you get full access to all of our systems and checklists and templates, our 200K GCI playbook to help you make 200K your first year, direct mentorship and direct access to us, no huge group calls. We also help agents add another stream of income, which is rev share. We will help you with all the tools and trainings you need to build revenue share that will help you retire early. If you're interested in building an actual business, book a call at theagentgoldmine.com.
Yeah. So one of the things that I am passionate about is that there's not a one size fits all plan. There's a fundamental framework, but if it doesn't feel true for you, it will feel like drudgery and dread and uphill battle. Okay. So the first thing I like to help people do is get really crystal clear on who you are. What are you interested in? What stages of life have you navigated? Former industries. So for her, using this example, a teacher is perfect. I was a teacher before I got into the real estate business. And as a result, I learned that I could create value for teachers because I feel authentically connected to them. And with the go-giver philosophy, the concept is, okay, what does it really mean to be of value to my clients above and beyond what I get paid to do? Which means I want to be a resource to you even when you don't need my services. And since in real estate, most of our clients won't need our services except every 3, 5, 7 years, of course, unless they're an investor, then what does it mean to really be of value to them? So there's a saying that it's when you step back from the single brushstroke that you can see the entire painting. So I think about a real estate transaction as one brushstroke in the painting. And my job is to get to the bottom of what brushstroke are they on now that they're not ready to buy. So like it's somebody who's not going to buy for another year or two. What are you doing to be of value to them so that it ripples out through their community and your name is coming up the dinner table because of how awesome you are as a person, not just because how great you are at your job title, right? Then beyond the closing, how are you continuing to show up and be a resource to people? So we call this the 3-lane highway. First thing, get clear on who you are. So, okay, she's a teacher. She's going to be able to relate to that. She probably understands the specific pain points of being worried about finances at 3 o'clock in the morning. So we call it the 3 a.m. moment. Like when Allie wakes up at 3 o'clock in the morning and she can't fall back asleep, I know she's not thinking about my pipeline, my business, my bank account, right? She's thinking about whatever she's excited about, what she's worried about, what she's working on. So if I'm thinking I want to be of value to Allie, I want to get to the bottom of what the 3 a.m. moment is and then figure out how to be a resource, which means I'm going to need to develop relationships with other service providers that I can be connecting to Allie. So what that might look like is, okay, so teachers, they have a fixed income. We know that it may be of a concern if they start growing a family, if they want to continue living in an expensive place, et cetera, right? So what would it look like to provide education around the value of owning real estate and building wealth? And what I found was that real estate investing became our path to early retirement. And as I started teaching other people, I was able to impact their lives in a positive way. And so, for example, I might think, okay, well, if money is a concern for teachers, what if I put together a coupon booklet of other service providers that are willing to provide discounts, local service providers that would offer discounts to teachers. So my wheels are kind of turning. I don't have it all figured out yet, but I started thinking about my 3-lane highway. So lane 1 is going to be teachers. That's who I want to be of value to in such a way that they are talking about me at the dinner table with friends, family, colleagues, coworkers, whatever, right? Lane 2 is other service providers that can be of value to them. And then lane 3 is anybody else, anybody who might know a teacher that can help me get some intel. So I start by calling every teacher I know. Hey, I'm thinking about putting together a resource guide, a coupon booklet, because I want to be a resource to you above and beyond just real estate. I want you to think of me if you need anything. And so I'm going to put together a teacher appreciation program. And I'm wondering, who would you like to see in that booklet? And can you make some introductions for me? So maybe you want that high-end hair salon or the massage therapist or the house cleaner or the handyman or whoever. There's service providers out there. And you're going to make those introductions to me. And I'm going to meet these business owners. And then I'm going to promote them back to my entire database. So now I'm building relationships with people in lane 2 that are also interested in providing teacher appreciation. And so I'm building a little bit of a tribe here. And I'm getting creative with lane 2 on what it would look like to promote them back. It could look like social media. It could look like a mailer, e-newsletters, events, education, workshops, whatever. So then lane 3 is like, I call Shelby, who's not a teacher. And I'm just like, hey, I'm putting together this teacher appreciation program. I want to be a resource to my clients above and beyond just real estate. And I'm wondering, do you know any teachers? Because I'd like to pick their brain. So now you're going to introduce me to some teachers, but I'm also going to find out what's going on with you. And I'm going to find a way to be of value to you, Shelby, in any way I can figure out. Like maybe I find out about a life event and I just send a handwritten note. Maybe I find out you're doing a remodel and I'm going to refer you to some contractors or introduce you to some financial services like estate planning because you need to get a will in place to protect your estate or a financial advisor, et cetera. So the point is that I take an avatar, which is authentic, right, for this listener. That's lane 1. I figure out how to provide value to them even when they don't need my services, which means I need to build out lane 2. And I leverage lane 1 to introduce me to the people they know in lane 2. And then I go to lane 3, which is everybody else, and say, do you know anybody in lane 1? Because I want to just get their input and have them connect me to their favorite local service providers who might be interested in being featured in this resource guide I'm creating. And then maybe I might give that free resource guide to every employee at the school and go one step further and connect with a mortgage lender and say, hey, what if we put together a first-time homebuyer workshop and we invite everybody at the school and we talk about down payment assistance and house hacking and co-signers and gift funds and all the things. And then what about everybody who already owns a house? What if we did a workshop on the power of building wealth through real estate investing? And we bring in a property manager, an insurance agent, a CPA, and we talk about how it's easier than you think to invest in real estate. Okay. That's a long-winded answer to a short question again. And it's a fundamental framework. We could do that exact same thing and have it just be about real estate investors. I call all my real estate investors that I know, anyone with a rental property, and I ask them to introduce me to their financial advisor, their CPA, their property manager, their insurance agent, their lender. And now I'm building out my lane 2. And then together, we're going to create some education for everybody in lane 3, which is anybody I know that doesn't have a rental property. You can do that with veterans. You can do that with empty nesters, aging parents, new parents. You can go hyper local and be your local digital mayor by just promoting all local businesses in the neighborhood you want to farm. I mean, there's really no end in sight. For me, this is how I overcame feeling salesy because I stopped talking about me. I just promoted other business back to my people. And I was intentional about getting to the bottom of your 3 a.m. moment. And I knew if I could make an impact to your life around something you're excited about, you're worried about, or you're working on, I would end up in conversations that I can't see. So there's a ripple effect that happens. And some people don't like that because they want the immediate gratification. But I promise you, if you follow this process over the course of 90 days, you'll start to see the leads ticking up. And the leads are an indication of the money in the bank within 90 days. So the key is when the leads come in, don't stop what you were doing and say, phew, I have a lead. I better give them all my attention until I get them to the closing table and then be heartbroken. God forbid they pick somebody else because I just stopped all the momentum I was creating with this value add approach. That's why I say it's easy. It's authentic. It works. It can be really fun. And you're spending time with people you care about and you're trying to find ways to add value to their lives. It's like there's no end in sight. It creates a snowball and it's personalized. So the idea isn't that it's a one size fits all. Like you can go get a playbook at any sales training. and then wonder why you're not executing with consistency. The thing that bridges the gap between execution and consistency when you have the playbook is that your heart and soul has to be infused. It has to feel good. It has to feel fun. It has to feel light. And there's a way to get to the bottom of that. And by the way, it can change over time. You can focus on teachers, and then you can focus on first-time buyers, and then you can focus on investment properties, investors, and then you can focus on out-of-state STRs, and then you can focus on empty nesters and aging parents. Like, as your life evolves, your business can evolve alongside you to ensure that it stays fresh, interesting, and fun, and that you're having an impact. If you chase the impact, the dollars will follow.
And I think that's when real estate agents get most upset when like clients don't sign with them. Because at that point, the only reason you're upset is because you expected a check, instead of coming from value, where if they found value in another agent, you would be happy. Anyway, so I want to go through this person gets a client or gets a lead come in. You mentioned earlier, celebrate your wins. So she finishes her lead gen, continues, with her calendar. How would you advise real estate agents to celebrate? How long? What do they do? How short? What's too little? What's too much? Because I won't make this about me. This is about the other person. But I never celebrate, and I have a feeling this other agent doesn't really celebrate either. She's a hard worker.
So this is a great question. And it's interesting because we're often, as human beings, control freaks by nature, and we want to have it all figured out. And this is why some people are going to hang on to their W-2 for longer than they maybe needed to. I don't want to say should, because I don't believe in that word really. Like, don't should all over yourself. But what do you want to do, right? And is it going to be scary? Yes. There's not a single person that you admire that's experiencing something you desire that didn't experience fear. The only difference between us and them is their decision to do it. And usually we have no idea what's transpired between that decision and what we're witnessing. It's usually a lot of falling on your face and getting up and keep going. So the first thing I would say is that I like to track every time someone says, I gave your name to so-and-so, I want to pick your brain, can I ask you a question? Instead of thinking that every real estate conversation is going to lead to a closing, I look at the 25% rule. It shows up in two ways. 25% rule that I learned from my coach like 10 years ago is that 25% of people will love you no matter what. 25% never will, no matter what. And the 50% in between are fair weather friends, or they just haven't met you yet. Imagine if you think about when you were in high school, like if you could have just focused on your 25% that love you no matter what, like we would have avoided so much heartache, right? Trying to please everybody. And then the other 25% rule is that a very conservative conversion ratio is that 50% of your leads will result in a meeting, only 50%. And 50% of your meetings can result in a closing. Now, a lot of us can have better conversion ratios than that, but this keeps it really simple. So let's say you're an agent, you were going to leave your W-2 if you feel safe having 2 closings a month. So 2 closings a month would equate to 4 meetings a month or 8 leads a month. And that's why I track every time someone says, hey, I gave your name to a coworker of mine. That may or may not ever lead to a meeting. That's okay. I want to put my attention on the positive. Somebody shared my name. Or I want to pick your brain. Tells me that they trust me, tells me that when the time comes, they'd likely be willing to work with me, provided I'm demonstrating value between now and then. And I'm not hung up on what I'm going to get out of this. So that way, when someone does pass on me, I can just chalk it up to not my 25%. But if you look at that, that means that if you want 2 closings a month, you want 8 leads a month, divide that by 4 weeks, you want 2 leads a week. So the same number of leads per week that you're getting is an indication of what your closings per month could look like in as little as 2 to 3 months. And we've experimented with this, and there's a science behind it. The only difference, like I said, is that a lot of people have slightly better conversion ratios where 2 leads a week might mean that you're closing 3 a month or 4 a month because you're converting better. But even with that simple ratio, it's a 25% rule. It means 1 out of 4 people are going to be a yes for me, and I'm a yes for them. Same goes for building your tribe, by the way. Like, you may have a friend or a client that refers you to a financial advisor, and you're all excited to meet this financial advisor, and they don't call you back. And you get all bent out of shape about it, which dims your light and drains your energy and leaves you unmotivated to keep going. And it's like, hang on a second, 25% rule. Only 25% of the people you meet to build your tribe of trusted local service providers, 1 out of 4 is the right fit. So we can lighten up a little bit. That means 3 out of 4 people are going to be bye-bye, no problem. So that's why I'm so passionate that we have to be careful not to drop everything and get so caught up on this one lead, this one opportunity, because they could be one of the 3 out of 4 that are not going to make it to the finish line. And I just compromised my momentum and literally gave my power away, stopped everything to just focus on converting this one lead. So, it's easier said than done, but I do like the fact that it can help create some peace within us. And to remember that our primary objective is to create the momentum, is to create the business. We are the business creators, the designers, the builders. It's not to react. The reacting is going to happen anyway. And if you take your foot off the gas, it's kind of like if you could imagine one of those big wooden flywheels. It takes a lot of effort to get that thing going because it's heavy, or like a car in neutral is really, really heavy. So it takes a couple people and a lot of force to get that thing moving. Once it's moving, if you tried to stand in front of it, it would run you over, right? So once it's going, it only takes a little bit of pressure to keep it moving. But so often people get that thing going. They work so hard. They push through their comfort zone and their, insecurity and everything else. And they get that momentum going. And then inevitably business comes in the door and they take their eye off of that and they go serve the clients. And this is where we create our own roller coaster. And the business closes or doesn't close. And we look over and it's like, everything's just come to a screeching halt. And what I know to be true, and I'm sure you ladies can agree, is like, there's no shortage of knowing what to do at that point. But we start to run out of the energy and the desire to do it. We run out of enthusiasm and it kind of gets old. So we don't want that. We don't want you to have this cycle of like strong effort to the point of exhaustion and then serve the clients and then it all dries up and then strong effort. Like it becomes this cycle of highs and lows, but it doesn't need to be. With good systems and scale, you can remove yourself as the bottleneck and create the steady, progressive, exponential growth.
Okay. I'm loving this podcast, Erin. You are literally like such a breath of fresh air. And also I know that you're like hitting the listeners, and especially like that one girl, she knows it's you. Love you. Shout out. You're killing it to the listener. But I know that this all like spoke really directly to her heart, as well as a bunch of other of our listeners. So I have one more question before we do a quick wrap up. But I have a note here that says one of your favorite apps is called Phone Burner. And you said that it's the least well known. And Ali and I, neither of us have heard of it. And we're kind of like app nerdy. So can you hit us? What is the Phone Burner app and why should we care?
Yeah, it's a game changer. So you upload your contacts and phone numbers into the system, and then you can do dialing sessions. So you're selecting the people you want to call, and it could be it's this month's birthdays. It could be it's everyone who's under contract and all the parties to the transaction, like whatever phone calls you want to make. And I know phone calls are tough for a lot of people, and they were for me too. But that's why with a 3-lane highway, you change the conversation. So there shouldn't be any resistance around being in contact with people if your purpose of the call is to be a resource, not ask for referrals. Like, I think that's where everything just gets like, ugh, I don't want to do that. And it's like, then we don't do it. And then we don't get results, So with Phone Burner, you're basically committing, okay, I'm going to make some calls. And I start dialing. Now you can pre-record a voicemail. So let's say I just want to call 50 past clients on Valentine's Day. And I want to say, hey, it's Erin and the rest of the team over here at ABC Company. And we just want to wish you a happy Valentine's Day and let you know how much we love having you in our real estate family. And as always, if you ever need anything, we're here to be a resource. Hope you're doing amazing. Can't wait to catch up soon. I didn't say your name. So I just pre-recorded a voicemail. So I started dialing and there's 3 benefits to this. 1 is speed. 2 is it helps you overcome call anxiety, which is common. And 3 is it eliminates distractions. So I throw in my AirPods. I'm using my desktop. I'm on my computer. I'm clicking start dialing. I call in a number, whatever. And now my cell phone is out of sight, which is key because if you've ever attempted to make phone calls, you make one, you like muster up the courage to make one call. And then you look at your phone, and it's just like covered with alerts, right? And then you just go down a rabbit hole of responding to text messages and email. And you're like, I made one call. So your phone is out of sight and it starts dialing Ali. It goes to voicemail. She's a past client. I click leave voicemail. As soon as it says, hi, you've reached the click, and now it's calling Shelby. 80% go to voicemail roughly. So boom, 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 boom. Now, if I call Shelby and she's one of my good friends and I just saw you for lunch yesterday, I maybe don't want some pre-recorded voicemail. So I'll let it go to voicemail and I can just be like, hey girl, great seeing you yesterday. Put on my work hat to make my Valentine's calls and hope you know how much I love you, right? And then click dialing the next person. And maybe they answer and then we have a convo. So usually I can get like 25 calls done in 30 minutes. So there's speed. And that's my goal for the week. So 25 calls a week was my goal. I used to hate trying to do 5 calls a day. It was just like dreadful. I'm a sprinter. So trying to do the same thing every day never worked. And second is that you get it done. The distractions, you're not even seeing those alerts. And then the third thing is like, as it's calling one of you and I'm like, oh my God, I can't remember if she even liked me. I feel like that transaction was a disaster and the inspection was insane and blah, blah, blah. I don't have any time to worry about it. It's happening. It's happening. So it gets it done. And I feel freaking amazing when it's over. I'm like so proud of myself because I just did like the drudgery of my week, but it gets results. You know what I mean? Like it gets results. It's efficient, it's fast, it's effective, and it barely costs a thing. And we used to upload like the buyer's agent, the listing agent, the buyer on every transaction and keep a in-process folder. So we would just make notes on all the transactions. There was no pre-recorded voicemail, but it was speed. So we would get through all of our in-process calls once a week and just be like, hey, here's where we're at. Appraisals in, loans approved, clear to close, docs are out, blah, blah, blah. It was a boom, boom, boom. So it's incredibly efficient. And that is something that I want time freedom above all else. Anything that gives me back time. And I'm like, sign me up.
I'm on your website right now because I'm going to buy your book, Pursuing Freedom. Where can people find you if they want to know more about you and buy your book, all the things?
Yeah. So the book I joke, is like a pamphlet. You can get that on Amazon. It's like $9. It's just the workshop I used to teach and it's outlined with scripts and everything. You can also get the free 5-step guide on my website, which is like the cliff notes of an already short book that literally gives you the 5-step guide, like set your goals, make your plan, and this is how you do it. And it's like with the scripts as well. And then you just Instagram me, like Pursuing Freedom Official, shoot me a DM. I always say at the end of my podcast, yeah, you can check out my podcast. Shelby's been on it. Ali, obviously you're going to be on it. So we'll get you scheduled soon. But
Yay,
you can check
thank
out
you.
the Pursuing Freedom podcast. It's been around since 2018, and there's been some incredible guests and stories and strategies, everything. But I always say at the end, like, if you found something or you had a question or you want more clarification or you just whatever, have a takeaway or a commitment, then DM Shelby or Ali or me, because we are here recording this, not knowing if anybody's out there listening besides your friend, the teacher. She's here. So if you're listening, let us know. DM me at Pursuing Freedom Official. It's me. And I love hearing from people and I love connecting. I feel like I said earlier, entrepreneurship can feel really lonely, but none of us are alone in what we struggle with. And if we could have more honest conversations, we can also have faster, easier, more enjoyable growth.
Awesome. So the best way that they can find you is on Pursuing Freedom Official, Instagram,
Yep.
Facebook, YouTube as well.
I'm on YouTube. Yep. Erin
Perfect.
Bradley and LinkedIn. I'm everywhere. So you'll
Everywhere.
find me.
I love it. Erin, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was amazing meeting you.
Thank you for having me. It was an honor and so fun. And I love this. I can't wait to listen to more of your show. You guys did great.
Okay. And with that, Erin, thanks again. And listeners, be a bro and share this show.
If you're on a 50-50 split, it's time to rethink your brokerage. At eXp, the split is 80-20. And once you cap, you keep 100%. We show you how to get there faster. I'm Ali Garced, or Ali the Agent. My sponsor, Shelby Johnson, and I each close over 40 deals a year. We are full-time agents actively producing, and everyone in our upline is an icon agent. When you name us as a sponsor at eXp, you get full access to all of our systems and checklists and templates, our 200K GCI playbook to help you make 200K your first year, direct mentorship and direct access to us, no huge group calls. We also help agents add another stream of income, which is rev share. We will help you with all the tools and trainings you need to build revenue share that will help you retire early. If you're interested in building an actual business, book a call at theagentgoldmine.com.